Bum 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 bum.
Okay, guys, welcome back. Me and Quim here again to talk about TBoD EXP, where we're asking each other questions and trying to get an in-depth conversation about a particular subject. And Quim's last question to me was about RPGs, so I thought I'd do something a bit different and ask Quim about his favourite game type, FPSs.
FPSs?
Get the shock there. So,
yeah, I was totally unprepared. No, I'm not totally unprepared. Again, full disclosure, we've briefed each other on these questions.
I just wanted to ask you, Quim, in recent years with FPSs having fallen off the mantle as the top-selling game type, do you think that they are dead? Do you think that they're dying? Or do you think that they're somehow due a massive resurgence?
Okay, so I'll break this up into two parts, I guess. So as far as dead or dying, I wouldn't necessarily say that they're dead, or certainly not dead. I wouldn't necessarily say they're dying. I would say that the FPS market, as of late, bar one or two kind of notable titles, has started to stagnate somewhat, and they all seem to be kind of converging into one kind of spot, which is, you know, the kind of fast-paced Call of Duty benchmark that you get. And I'm not using Call of Duty as a dirty word here, which I have done many times on the podcast. I think that Call of Duty does do what it does really fucking well, and it does it in a way that appeals to a mass audience. And of course, game developers are businesses. They want to make money. And so appealing to that kind of audience that likes a very pick up and play a couple of rounds here, a couple of rounds there, you know, wham bam, thank you ma'am, is certainly, you know, it's certainly viable if you can pull it off. The kind of danger with that is that you end up with this kind of generic feel if you don't get it right, because, as I say, Call of Duty does it very, very, very well. We have to give them that, regardless of what our thoughts about the game and the annualization, etc. So I think that if you don't pull that off, which is difficult to do, your game gets judged via the Call of Duty benchmark and ultimately falls short. And so you end up with a lot of kind of, I wouldn't say mediocre, but middling games that aren't really, you know, making a kind of impression on the gaming FPS audience at large. And you'll find that player numbers tend to drop off very quickly. And that, you know, that seems to be happening more and more recently. I mean, take a look at Titanfall. Excellent game, I might add. And that did bring an extra element to it.
Fantastic mechanics. Such a fun game to play.
Exactly, yes. But the player numbers for that took a swan dive off a cliff after a couple of months. And of course, you've got your core players there. But, you know, the hype behind that game and the amount of people that bought that game, it just kind of died a death, so to speak. Certainly in the eyes of, you know, keeping its wider appeal.
Do you think that's a case of like oversaturation of the game market as it stands now? I mean, obviously, you're probably going to talk about Halo in a bit, but we used to play shitloads of Halo, but at the time, Halo was really the only FPS on consoles worth playing.
If you're going back to kind of the Halo 2, Halo 3 days, yeah, I mean, it certainly does play a role. I'm not solely saying that other FPSs knock the other one straight off the kind of shelf and
no.
this tray. Yes, there are more games out there. There's more variety, and so you do find that you lose your audience quicker. But I wouldn't solely say that it's down to having all these other games to play. It's down to the fact, I think one of the factors is down to the fact that these developers aren't doing enough with their shooters to keep the audience.
Yeah.
You know, I think that again, I mean, even if you look at Call of Duty itself, those numbers are steadily declining, albeit it's a small curve, but they are dropping. And that's because, you know, they kind of churn these things out. And yeah, I think that on the whole, if we're looking at the kind of wider audience, they're quite fickle. And, you know, a new game comes along, they'll pick it up, they'll play it. And then, you know, they'll be like, right, okay, we'll go to another one now. I'm done with that. That's not held my interest for long enough. And I'll jump onto something else. I think one of the other kind of reasons behind it, which I wanted to kind of feed into the, could we see a resurgence? Could it become the top game type of game again? And in short, the answer to that would be no. Simply put, FPS has had its day. It will not be the most played game again. And the game type that will be in the future, and is now, would be the MOBA.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
So I wanted to kind of show you, or go through some stats, which kind of demonstrate just how big MOBAs have got, and why I think basically, you know, FPSs will never ever catch up again.
Sweet, stat time.
It's stat time, exactly. So I'm going to take the two biggest franchises from both sides. So 1, Call of Duty, boom, and 2, League of Legends. Both massive, okay? So stats-wise, so these are as of last year, these figures. Middle of last year, I managed to match the figures up as well. So
I'm excited.
A decent kind of comparison. So when it comes to Call of Duty, since 2010, 125 million people have played a Call of Duty game. Okay, so
that's a lot of people.
So, you know, in 4 years, 125 million people. Modern Warfare 3 was the best-selling Call of Duty with 26.5 million copies sold. At its peak, it had 3.3 million concurrent daily players. So every day, 3.3 million people would log in on Modern Warfare 3, shoot the fuck out of those other players. Okay? In comparison, League of Legends, as of, I think it was November last year, it had 27 million daily players. 67 million play the MOBA monthly. So you can obviously see there's a bit of a difference there as it goes. So Call of Duty at its peak is a kind of drop in the ocean when it comes to League of Legends.
Absolutely, that's terrifying.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. I've got some more insane stats for you. So, our beloved Halo.
Yep.
During the time of Bungie's reign, so from the time it went online in 2004 right up until 2012, I think you'll remember we discussed it on one of our first podcasts, in fact. That infographic which said that 2 billion hours of Halo had been played between that. Now, back in 2012, when League of Legends had half the player base, so it had 35 million players and 12 million daily, they would rack up 1 billion hours a month. So
holy shit.
So if you look at today's player base for League of Legends, which, as I said before, is 67 million play it monthly, and that's 27 million daily. If you kind of scale that up, essentially 2 billion hours a month is racked up in League of Legends, and that's more than the entire time Bungie held Halo as its kind of franchise.
Jesus.
So I think maybe the kind of question of what makes MOBA so popular kind of echoes what is going wrong in the FPS arena, and that's purely down to them clinging on to this kind of traditional development model. Again, we'll stick with the Call of Duty because it is the biggest one out there. They bring out games every year. They cost $60 every year, and they make incremental improvements.
Yeah.
And not always, and most of the time, they're not for the better. If you look at the the kind of, because I follow a few people who play Call of Duty on Twitter naturally, and whenever one comes out, it's like, nope, this isn't as good as this iteration, this isn't as good as this iteration, but you know, they're still forking over the $60, but that's another argument. People are just paying and paying and paying for these games, paying for the DLC,
hand over fist, as it were.
Exactly. You know, giving hundreds of bucks to Activision for these games, which are essentially the same thing, only with a bit of a tweak here or a bit of a tweak there. Whereas a MOBA is something like League of Legends is free. It's built on a free model with microtransactions built in. So you pay what you want, and you get out of it what you want.
Or what you put in.
And I think that's a much more refreshing model if done well, compared to the kind of $60 a year kind of annualized cycle that we see so often. So, I mean, I think that would be the main factor to why MOBAs are so popular and why we won't see a resurgence in first-person shooters. I think...
so you don't think that there's a change that FPSs can make to make themselves more appealing? So something like...
I'd go free.
PlanetSide 2?
Go free.
PlanetSide 2 is free to play.
Sure, exactly. Call
that's
of Duty
big.
Online is released in China, and that's a free-to-play game.
Right.
So, you know, there are steps being made that they could make that resurgence.
What's the new Blizzard IP called again? I can't remember off the top of my head, but that looks like a combination...
Heroes of the Storm.
No, the FPS one?
Is it not Heroes of the Storm? Is that not their new MOBA?
No, it's that might be their new MOBA, but there's the new FPS that's coming out by Blizzard.
Yes.
That looks really, really exciting. It looks like it's somewhere in between an FPS and a MOBA.
Yeah.
So it's got that sort of that character-driven nature and that competitive.
So they could take something from that, but I think that, you know, the thing with FPS and what I love about it is the many permutations you can have in a map, and maps are fairly varied, and, you know, on a good map, a lot of the map will get used. Yeah. But it's very variable. The kind of MOBA's popularity is driven by esports, and the reason that MOBAs suit esports so well is because they come down to, it's either a 3 or a 5 lane map. So there's only X amount of directions you can take, and it's more down to the kind of player skill and the map manipulation to, not that I'm saying that it's all about map manipulation to win an FPS, but certainly there are more environmental and more variables which make it less predictable. Yeah. Whereas, you know, it's all about the player's skill when it comes down to a clash in a MOBA.
I have played League of Legends before, and I got absolutely wiped.
Yeah, I imagine you would, because people have been playing this game since 2009.
And destroyed the shit out of me.
Consistently playing it, you know? So, yes, I could see FPS taking a leaf, and we're seeing it now, taking a leaf from MOBAs, but until they kind of drop this whole kind of yearly annualized give me your money kind of attitude, I think you'll see more and more players kind of gradually drop off. I mean, for example, there's a game called Smite coming to Xbox One, which is a MOBA. Right. So it'll be like the first proper console MOBA coming soon, which is really exciting. A game like that has a lot of potential to grab those kind of FPS fans, those competitive FPS fans who like to play, you know, and play to win, and from the console audience. It'll give, you know, it makes it way more accessible than having to have a PC. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But as I say, I don't think that FPS is going to have any kind of top spot again, which is kind of unfortunate to say. I was brought up on FPS. Yeah. But, yeah, fair play. Long live the MOBA, if you ask me. I want to see how it goes with that. Yeah, I want to see how they reign for the next 30 years. Yeah, maybe they'll invent one that we can be good at some stage down the line. Maybe. To be honest, I don't have the reactions for a MOBA anymore. No. I was thinking about just dedicating a couple of months to playing some MOBAs just to try them out. But really, like, as I said, it comes down to player skill. I'm all about the environmental factors, so I'll stick to the FPS thing.
Great. Well, I think you've about covered that. Summed it up nicely. So we'll be back next time for another TBoD EXP.